And today I will talk about the evolving SaaS attack landscape and how can you stay protected with our product. Let's get started. I will give you a quick overview on the recent trends in SaaS landscape, and then I will focus on app governance, which is our product pillar to secure OAuth interactions with SaaS. And we'll walk you through the steps you need to take in order to operationalize app governance and protect your environment. Before we dive into recent trends in the SaaS attack landscape, I want to start by sharing a real-world attack campaign that we've seen play out repeatedly over the past few months across multiple organizations. This isn't theoretical. This is happening, and it's worth your attention for several reasons. First, this is a cloud-only attack. The entire attack chain unfolds in the cloud. No malware, no endpoint exploitation, no lateral movement inside the corporate network. It all starts with an OAuth consent phishing email. An attacker tricks the user into granting permissions to a malicious app, and that's it. From that moment on, every action is performed by a non-human identity, or NHI. That's important because it means the entire operation is happening outside of the managed corporate or device environment. There are no real-time detections, no endpoint telemetry. These NHIs operate via APIs, and the activity looks like a normal app integration. In this case, the attacker accessed the user's mailbox silently and silently read through emails. In other cases, we've seen access to source code repositories, sensitive documents, or even production environments, all without raising a single red flag. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details of the attack just yet. We'll come back to it. But I wanted to start here because it highlights exactly why understanding the SaaS attack surface is more important than ever. Let's start with the big picture. Why are SaaS attacks surging? The short answer is our IT ecosystems have changed, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic. We're all using SaaS apps heavily. The average enterprise now uses around 150 SaaS apps. That's a huge jump from just a handful about a decade ago. Every one of those apps likely uses those tokens or API keys to integrate with our core systems. This means there are many more tokens and trust relationships out there for attackers to target. On top of that, users and organizations increasingly chain these apps together for efficiency. Think about all the add-ons and third-party apps you authorize with a single click. These app-to-app integrations often request broad permissions. In fact, a single OAuth consent can let a third-party app read and write your emails, files, contacts, almost anything if you approve the scopes it asks for. Our research shows that 1 in 3 OAuth apps are overprivileged, meaning they have more access than they really need. This is a goldmine for attackers. With one careless user click, a malicious app can gain significant foothold. We'll circle back to the attack I just showed you, and we'll see how this comes into play. Historically, most attacks targeted on-premise systems, aiming for ransomware attacks. But in the past 2 years, we've seen a sharp rise in cloud-only attacks. And by the way, it's not just casual hackers doing this. Nation-state actors and organized cyber criminals have noticed this opportunity. We have seen a big increase in OAuth app abuse by advanced actors in the past year. Why, you ask? Because operating through a trusted app can bypass many traditional defenses. For example, an OAuth app doesn't trigger an MFA prompt every time it uses the token. It just quietly works. Attacker loves to operate in the stealth. Finally, you probably heard about this endlessly today. We have a wave of new AI-based SaaS tools and integrations. Users are excited to try them and often just click approve on whatever permissions those tools ask for. This mix of rapid SaaS adoption and user convenience creates the perfect storm. Lots of trust, not a lot of verification. On top of that, those advanced tools are being also leveraged by attackers to make their attacks more sophisticated and efficient. So in summary, the SaaS landscape is evolving rapidly. OAuth apps are now a critical attack surface. The combination of these excessive permissions, persistent access, and ease of exploitation make OAuth apps a prime target for attackers. As defenders, we need to pay attention to this evolving landscape because attackers simply are. I want to stress a few key reasons why OAuth attacks pose a serious risk to your organization. First, when a user grants consent to an OAuth app, that app can receive very powerful permissions. For example, email.read.all or code.edit. With those permissions, a malicious app can read every email or modify code repositories without any password. Second, even legitimate applications can be compromised. A trusted app can easily become a vector for attack if an attacker gains access to it or its developer account. So approved apps are not automatically safe. Third, OSAP phishing is surprisingly easy to execute. And with AI tools, just like you mentioned, attackers can make their fake applications and consent screens look very convincing. In short, excessive permissions, persistent access tokens, and the simplicity of phishing combine to make OAuth app connected apps prime targets for attackers. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps protects organizations from the risks that arise due to the usage of SaaS applications. So let's focus on Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. Let's talk about our approach on how to solve this problem. Think of Defender for Cloud App as a SaaS cyber protection platform built on the foundations of the classic CASB. It has three main pillars: app discovery, posture management, and threat protection. App discovery helps you find all the cloud applications in your environment. This is where you start. Posture management helps you secure those applications by identifying risky permissions or misconfigurations to prevent attacks. Threat protections uses analytics to alert on suspicious activity and allow your SOC teams to identify and hunt cyber attacks. We always assume breach. Importantly, this same three-pillar approach applies to OAuth and app-to-app scenarios. The app governance module in Defender for Cloud Apps makes it easy to operationalize these capabilities, specifically for OAuth apps. It provides visibility into every app consent, lets you apply policies and enforce controls. I'll show you how that works in a few moments. So where do you start? Have you ever asked yourself how many OAuth applications are actually connected to your tenant, or who granted those permissions, and what do they even do? In most environments, the answer surprises people. There are often far more OAuth apps than administrators realize, and if you can't answer those questions, you're likely at risk. Users and even admins might click accept on an app permission request without fully understanding the consequences. Without visibility, these apps just fly under the radar. With Defender for Cloud Apps App Governance, you can uncover all OAuth apps in your environment, see who approved them, and understand exactly what data they can access. And it's not just about knowing the number itself. It's about understanding the behavior, identifying risks and anomalies, and also taking proactive steps to protect your organization. Over the next few slides, I'll walk you through app governance and show you how to use it to take control of your OAuth app landscape and reduce significantly this risk. So first, we opt in. App governance is currently an opt-in feature. This means that while the capability is available to you, you need to enable it manually before you can start leveraging its benefits. But don't worry, this is a one-click process. To enable app governance, simply go to the settings, navigate to Cloud Apps, and then select App Governance. Then check the service status option. It's that straightforward. We're working on automatically onboarding customers in the future, but for now, taking this quick step ensures you can begin securing your OAuth app and app-to-app interactions today. Once you've enabled app governance, you're ready to dive into the actionable steps we'll cover today. Let's take a look at how you can put it into work. Step into your journey to secure OAuth apps. It's all about gaining insights. With app governance, you get full visibility into SaaS apps accessing your environment, including Microsoft 365, Salesforce, and Google Workspace. This dashboard serves as the command center to start your day by monitoring, categorizing, and prioritizing app governance efforts efficiently. Do you remember the questions I asked before? Here, you can get a single view of what permissions do they have, how many apps are accessing your environment, which incidents are related to those apps. This visibility allows you to move to the next critical step, reducing your attack surface exposure and improving your security posture. Now, you see, this list isn't just for visibility. It's a starting point for action. You'll see critical details. For example, high privileged applications. These are apps that have significant access to sensitive data or systems. For example, an app that has permissions to edit, delete, or share confidential files. There's also overprivileged applications. These are apps granted more permissions than they need. For example, an app that has access to manage user profile across your environment, but only use this permission to view user profile. The extra managed permission is unnecessary and increases your exposure to threat attacks. Those unused applications, these are apps that are authorized but haven't been used for a significant period of time. They can become a security risk if not removed because attackers might exploit them. And then there's also verified publisher. This refers to apps that are published by an entity that has gone through a verification process, confirming the app's source and trustworthiness. Apps without a verified publisher may pose a higher risk and require closer attention. And remember, you have to do it continuously. Since, as I mentioned earlier, the adoption of SaaS apps interactions and OAuth apps is increasing by the day, hence the amount of apps will continue to flow and their usage will continue to change. Let's move to the next slide where I'll share how we recommend on doing this process periodically. The first step is approve. Focus on high privilege apps and validate that they actually need the access they've been given. For example, ensure the apps with high privilege have permissions with a reasonable business need. We also recommend documenting this business need for investigation reasons as well. Next is verify. Ensure all applications have a verified publisher. Apps without a verified publisher should be reviewed closely. You need to understand their business purpose and assess their legitimacy. Step 3 is reduce risk. Remove excessive permissions from overprivileged apps. For instance, if an app has both read and write permissions but only uses read, removing write access significantly reduces potential risk. And lastly, clean up. Maintain a good hygiene to reduce your exposure by identifying and removing unused apps. These are common attack vectors, and removing them when they're no longer needed is a simple but effective way to improve security. Take these steps the same way you do with users. Do you have a process to remove accounts of employees who left the company? If so, do you have the same process for applications? I really hope you do. So far, we've talked about finding and managing OAuth apps. Now let's assume you are on board with these recommendations and want to move forward with an automated and scalable approach. Defender for Cloud Apps allows you to stay green by creating policies. Here, we're going to create a policy, and you can see how this policy will generate an alert for applications with high privilege permissions and with unverified publisher. This kind of policy will ensure you maintain security over time with alerts and workflows in place to handle any risks proactively with your stock instead of manually reviewing apps. So you can see here, we're gonna select the different conditions. And then once we create this policy, it will trigger an alert that will reach the XDR alert page. By following this process, you create a clear framework for you to manage your OAuth apps effectively and reduce your security risk. So here we're reviewing the policy and we can create it. And then from this moment on, we're going to get alerts automatically. They're going to get to the XDR alert queue. Moving forward. To add to the pre-breach capabilities, here is another great feature we've introduced recently. Microsoft Security Exposure Management helps you visualize, analyze, and remediate cross-workload attack surfaces. Within it, there is the Enterprise Exposure Graph, which is the central tool for exploring and managing attack surfaces. The graph gathers information about assets, users, workloads, and more from across your enterprise to provide a unified, comprehensive view of your organizational security posture. We have included OAuth applications within the graph in order to help you and your teams identify potential attack paths that involve OAuth apps. In this attack surface map, you can see here how we identified a device that exposes an open door for attacker to gain access to a service principal with sensitive permission, and in this way may access your SaaS environment. When an alert is triggered or a new kill chain is being published online, personas like hunters and threat researchers need information in easily accessible and queryable format so that they can do exposure hunting at scale through threat events. They need to either investigate ongoing incidents or hunt for potential exposure points. For example, Microsoft security team, which has hundreds of thousands of OAuth apps, are validating which apps have high privileges permission and out of which how many are unused or external. This becomes very difficult and time-consuming to do via the UI. So we provided app metadata and events hunting so that they can write custom queries based on their requirements and do hunting at scale. This capability will also soon be extended. We're working to allow it to also be part of the unified XDR connector for Sentinel, where you can stream your data to your team. Okay, up to this point, we've mostly focused on preventing attacks. Now, as always, we have to assume breach, and let's talk about threat detections. Defender for Cloud Apps include extensive threat protection for SaaS and OAuth scenarios. Our security research team has built over 30 out-of-the-box detection rules that look for malicious behavior in app-to-app interactions only. When one of these detections finds something suspicious, it generates an alert. Crucially, all these alerts are part of the Microsoft Unified XDR platform. This means that alerts from cloud apps, email, endpoints, and identities all fit into a single console if you're using Microsoft 365 Defender. And of course, if you have your own research or intelligence teams, you can use this data to build custom detections tailored to your environment. The key here is that you can't build effective detections if you don't have the right data. App Governance provides that data in real time, empowering your team to act proactively. Here is a specific example of a detection we built. This rule looks for applications that are impersonating a legitimate app in your organization. An attacker might try to create an OAuth app with a name or ID very similar to one of your known apps, hoping to trick users or evade your existing policies. For instance, they could spin up an app called Contoso Analytics when you have an internal app called Contoso Reports. If you detect a match that looks like a malicious lookalike, we fire an alert. This is a powerful way to catch attackers trying to hide inside of your cloud environment. Once an alert like that is triggered, Defender for Cloud Apps provides a rich investigation experience. You can see detailed information about the suspicious app right in the portal. The alert page will show you the app name and its permissions, who granted consent, risk score, and more. You can even click through to see activities related to that app. This unified experience brings together all relevant data so analysts can quickly understand the context. From here, you might revoke the app permission, disable a user account, or take other actions to stop the attack. The key point is that we surface everything you need in one place to respond immediately. Now that you're equipped with the full guide on how to use app governance modules alerts, I want to highlight a security by default capability that was already introduced last year. Microsoft Defender's automatic attack disruption uses AI-powered insights and correlates signals from across your environment, endpoint, identities, email collaboration tools, and of course, SaaS app to stop attacks in progress. This capability is another way on how we help you stop attackers before they continue with their lateral movement within your environment. Building on this innovation, we've expanded our automatic attack disruption capabilities to include malicious OAuth applications. Let's take a common attack scenario, such as business email compromise. After initially compromising a user's email account, an attacker may register a malicious app. They do that to provide consistent access to your network, even if that user's access will be revoked. This app will then be used to exfiltrate data, to send phishing emails, etc. With our new capabilities, Microsoft Defender detects and disrupts this activity early in the kill chain, preventing further damage before the stock even needs to intervene. Here are two specific scenarios where automatic disruptions come into play. The first is malicious OAuth application added by a compromised user. A threat actor compromises a user account and adds an OAuth app. Microsoft Defender immediately flags this as an attempt to establish persistence and disrupts the activity to prevent lateral movement. The second is malicious OAuth app registration. A medium or high-risk user account adds an OAuth app with suspicious properties. This activity is flagged as high risk, and disruption kicks in to block the app from accessing sensitive resources. In both cases, these automatic actions stop the attack, giving your SOC more time to focus on broader remediation efforts. It's important to note that these capabilities need to be enabled in Microsoft 365 Defender. Organizations must allow disruptions in XDR to make full use of this feature. Once enabled, you'll have automatic protection against one of the most critical attack vectors. My recommendation to you is click on the link here in this slide right now and bookmark that page so that when you come back to work on Monday, you can immediately enable it. Now let's return to the real world attack scenario we've introduced earlier. I'm sure you're all curious to dive into it. Again, this isn't a hypothetical or a lab simulation. It's a real campaign we've seen across multiple large enterprises in the last few months. It highlights just how easily a threat actor can weaponize OAuth permissions to compromise an organization without malware, without stealing passwords, and without even touching an endpoint. Let's walk you through it step by step. First, we have the initial access. It's OAuth consent phishing. It begins with a phishing email. We can see it here on the screen, but it's not your typical credential harvesting phish. This email contains a link inviting the user to approve what appears to be a trusted application, maybe something like Microsoft 365 backup service or secure document viewer. These links lead to a legitimate OAuth consent screen from the identity provider. The branding looks right, the domain is correct, and the user thinks, okay, IT probably needs me to click on it. You can see everything looks right, the logo looks right, the screen is there. It's all done by the identity provider. Now, the user will click accept. And once the user clicks accept, in that moment, the identity provider there issues an access token to the attacker app. No password exchanged. The user has unknowingly said, I trust this app to act on my behalf. And from that point on, every action the attacker takes is through non-human identity or NHI API calls, won't trigger any standard signing alerts. To establish persistence, the attacker then escalates their own malicious app, and they register their own malicious app inside the victim tenant. These steps establish persistence, and then the app appears in the tenant's app catalog, often under a name that mimics a legitimate service. To evade detection, they even use a name and a logo that is copying the look of a trusted app like Microsoft Teams or OneDrive. This visual camouflage allows the app to avoid scrutiny from both users and IT admins. With the token and granted permission, the attacker now performs high privilege applications. They're using mailbox settings.read.write.all or similar scopes. This gives them deep access into the user's mailbox. This ability to read and send and manipulate email. At this point, the attacker begins to search for sensitive content. They can scan for keywords like FY25 planning, financial forecasts, or confidential. They're collecting business critical data without triggering a single DLP policy or logging alert. To exfiltrate the data quietly, they create inbox rules that forward emails to an external address under their control. We've seen cases where attacker even forwards specific conversations from HR or legal. And then next step, in order to cover their traces, the attackers even delete the forwarded messages from the user's sent items or inbox. This prevents the victim from noticing anything unusual and gives the attacker more time to operate undetected. Now take a step back. This entire kill chain, from phishing to persistence to data exfiltration, happened without malware, without user credentials, and completely within the cloud. There were no signings from foreign IPs, no endpoint alerts, nothing that would trigger a traditional red flag. This is the new reality. Today, attackers don't need elite skills or 0 days. They just need a user to click accept. Unfortunately, we know that our employees are often the weakest link in security. However, there are good news. This entire kill chain can be disrupted by Defender for Cloud Apps using the detections and disruption capabilities I introduced today. Some of those are covered automatically for you. It's helpful to map this attack to the MITRE ATT&CK framework to ensure we haven't missed any steps. Let's go through some of the relevant techniques. For initial access, phishing was used, specifically spear phishing with the link. The OAuth consent phishing is exactly this, a tailored link to a user that leads them to do something against their interest. Now, the interesting stuff comes in the credential/access token area. MITRE has a technique called use alternate authentication material application access token, which basically covers using tokens instead of passwords to authenticate. This kind of an attack where the adversary is leveraging a token to access resources falls under this. It's a form of defense evasion and persistence too, because using the token, they bypass things like MFA. Similarly, still application access token is the act of obtaining those tokens illicitly, which covers both stealing via adversary in the middle and tricking via consent. The logo impersonation steps maps to the micro attack of mass security, where the attacker alters the app's name and logo to appear legitimate. They're reducing the chances that a user or admin notices anything suspicious in the OAuth app consent screen or app catalog later on. When the attacker sets things like forwarding rules or uses Graph API to search emails, that falls into discovery. They're searching for intel and also possibly collection. There isn't a specific attack technique for created mailbox rule via API, except it might be considered part of the overall collection strategy. But it's a known behavior that we all need to monitor for. Let's recap what we've learned today. Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps is your platform for securing the entire SaaS environment. It is organized around three main areas: discover all cloud apps, improve app security posture, and protect against threats. We've walked through each of these in the context of OAuth and app-to-app interaction. We started by enabling app governance to find all OAuth apps and review their permissions. We talked about automating policies to block dangerous app consent. We saw how built-in detections alert you to malicious activity and how all this integrates with your SOC tool. In short, the same pillars of Defender for Cloud Apps apply to your OAuth ecosystem. My recommendation for all of you is to enable app governance in your tenant right away. Don't wait. You might want to wait for Monday, but just do it as soon as possible. Start reviewing your OAuth apps and tune policies to fit your organizations. Those might be just the built-in policies, or you might even want to create custom policies that are relevant to you only. Thank you for joining this session. I hope you now feel more confident in protecting your cloud apps with Defender for Cloud Apps. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm here to answer them now.
Folks, feel free to ask questions. Also, you can post in chat sections as well.
Okay, if there are no further questions, back to you, Rohit. I guess we have a short break.
Yeah, thanks for that. It was very wonderful session and excellent presentation. Thank you, Daniel.